Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. I'm your host, Drege, Solution Specialist here at AgilePoint, and thank you so much for joining me today. Now we're still seeing a few of your colleagues dialing in here, so let's give them another moment before we go ahead and get started. All right, thank you everyone for your patience. So just a couple of quick housekeeping items here before we get started. You've probably noticed that this is a webinar session, and as such, your lines are muted. Now that being said, we do want to encourage interaction, and the best way to do that is using the questions panel in your Zoom console. And if it's something that we don't get a chance to address throughout the course of the webinar, we have 15 minutes at the end of the session to go over those questions as a group. As far as the flow of today's webinar is concerned, there are two major components. Up front, I'll go through a few brief slides. I know that a number of you are talking to AgilePoint for the first time, so we'll introduce the company, our technology, and a few of the concepts that you'll see throughout the remainder of the presentation. And after our slides, we'll go ahead and jump into a demo. We'll give you a sense of the couple of different types of applications that you can build using AgilePoint without writing a single line of code. Now, for those of you that are new, I'll tell you a little bit about the company, right, and where we've come from, because it really does inform where we're going as an organization. Now, AgilePoint was founded back in 2003, and my two founders had developed significant expertise in the area of Java-based business process management, which is great if you have the largest and most complex problems to solve, a highly specialized team to do so, and the largest possible bankroll to address those challenges. Now, my two founders, Sean and Jesse, wanted to take that power and flexibility of Java-based BPM and to format it into a platform that would enable everyone in the organization to contribute to the application development process. And that dream has really been realized with the version 7 release of our technology that hit the market just about a year ago. Now, over those 15 years of business, right, 1,500 organizations have entrusted us with their most mission-critical application needs. And typically, the types of challenges that we're solving span industry sectors and verticals, and every major center across the globe, with a regional team that speaks the local languages on the local time zone to ensure you always receive timely support. So let's talk a little bit about, the types of challenges that AgilePoint as a platform is solving for our customers. Well, the first of which, in this era of digital business transformation, there's simply a need for more software than most of our customers are able to deliver. We need to automate the various internal and customer-facing processes that help us run our business and deliver a delightful experience to our customers. We need to customize the software that we're using, right? And with the advent of cloud and mobile applications, that really further compounds the problem. And the fact of the matter is, using traditional hand coding techniques, most customers simply can't keep up with the volume of software that they must create. So AgilePoint really looks to address these challenges head on, right, and does so by providing a powerful and intuitive platform with a large library of pre-built components, whether that's to model business process, to design compelling user interface forms, and integrate the data that you use to run your business. Many of our customers, to address this large increase in custom software, are looking to empower a larger group of users to contribute to the application development process. Now, of course, that needs to be done within the guardrails and the standards that have been put forth by the organization, effectively bringing this concept of shadow IT into the light and enabling business and IT to innovate side by side. With all of this driving towards the singular goal of accelerating the transformation to becoming a digital business, to developing and maintaining a competitive edge that differentiates your organization with the rest of the market. Now, there's a number of different benefits to implementing a technology like AgilePoint, and we'll go through a few of them today. Right, the first of which is this concept of business partnership with IT. This has typically been a sticking point for many organizations over the last 30 or 40 years because there tends to be such a large gap between these two groups. The business requires software, and IT is only able to deliver on so much of it. Right, and that's really because IT tends to be focused on the most complex tasks. So where does that leave us? Well, the applications that make work easier, that delight our customers, often get left in the wind, right? Because they're simply not strategic enough for IT to take on as a top priority. And then lastly, and arguably the most important benefit, is the ability to become an adaptive business. Right, for many of you on the phone today, there are new competitors encroaching on your market share with every given day. There are rising expectations on behalf of your customers, whether those are internal customers or those that you do business with. Right, and this is really the area where AgilePoint is looking to provide the biggest benefit to you as an organization. Now let's briefly talk about some of the customers that we've worked with. Right, you're seeing a cross-section here on screen, and I have a few case studies that I'd like to share with you. But typically, our customers tend to be on the larger side, Global 2000s or multinationals at minimum, and they're getting a wide range of value from a single, versatile AgilePoint NX platform. A large portion of them are using AgilePoint in some sort of mission-critical capacity. These use cases tend to be complex, tend to be long-running, and are often central to how an organization generates revenue. In manufacturing, think of a shop floor process. In financial services or banking, this might correlate to the new customer onboarding process or new account creation process. A large chunk of them have deployed AgilePoint as the organization-wide standard for application delivery, whether that's process-based applications, chatbots, data-driven apps, or applications that leverage IoT and machine learning. And perhaps the most compelling is that 65% of these customers came to AgilePoint after their digital business transformation initiatives failed using a competitive software. Now this brings me to one of the most exciting announcements in my 3 years here at AgilePoint, and that's AgilePoint's leader positioning in the prestigious Digital Process Automation Wide Report. If you read the report, right, Forrester views this section or this segment of technologies as oftentimes the missing link to realizing a successful digital business transformation. And if we focus in on AgilePoint's coverage of the report, there are a few key areas that I'd like to bring to your attention. The first of which is for a true and pervasive digital transformation, we need to address the widest range of use cases. This can mean things like variance in scope of an application, from a process that serves an individual group or division, to something that touches every team across the organization. data-driven apps that provide CRUD operations against a variety of data sources like Salesforce, SharePoint, SAP, etc. But also, as we alluded to earlier, creating chatbot applications, IoT applications, as well as apps that are informed by machine learning models. From a single, very versatile platform, you can develop one set of skills and in turn, roll out a wide variety of applications that automate every facet of internal operations, customer-facing operations, to realize your digital business transformation initiatives. AgilePoint has been regularly recognized for a high level of price performance, including a unique concurrent user seat model, which enables me to start small, to scale my usage of AgilePoint as I might need it, with my licensing reflecting the value that I'm getting from the platform itself. And then lastly, where many of our competitors are focused on creating applications fast and easy, AgilePoint focuses on the maintenance of those applications at large scale. I have a great case study that I'll share with you in just another moment, but in short, AgilePoint makes it very straightforward to absorb changes in underlying technologies. As an example, if you're on premises today primarily, but have a directive to move to the cloud, to respond to changes in the way you're doing business, and of course, to stand in lockstep with rising customer expectations. Now, so far we've talked about the recent Forrester Report, but AgilePoint has been regularly recognized across a wide variety of analyst reports that represent a variety of different segments. We've talked about process excellence at scale, the ability to quickly and easily spin up a process to meet any business need, how we can replace C# or Java-based development as a low-code platform, and handle the complex and long-running BPM-type use cases. So what I'd like you to take away from this slide here is the versatility, right? The power of AgilePoint's platform to address every business need that you might come across in your organization. Now, in order to understand the unique value add of AgilePoint, let's take a quick look at the state of no-code and low-code tooling today. On the one hand, we have the no-code camp. Right, these platforms are typically easier to get started with for less technical users, but tend to target more simple or specific use cases. What's more, they tend to lack a manageable extensibility layer, which can really limit their appeal and ability to address different types of scenarios. On the other hand, we have the low-code camp, who offer a little more control, but tend to be extended with a proprietary scripting language or some sort of fourth-generation programming language, which is great. I might be able to address a slightly larger amount of different use cases, but these tend to be limited in their appeal to less technical users. Now, with that being said, AgilePoint is truly a unique and powerful blend of these two different categories of low-code software, and I'll give you a good sense of how we can realize on that promise, how we can deliver on that promise. Starting off with the software development lifecycle, we need to start with our data. So whether that's integrating with the various systems that you use to run your business today, AgilePoint offers 70 cloud and on-premises data sources as standard integrations into our platform, with 700 total activities. Now, what this means in the real world is that you can go much farther and build applications of much greater complexity before having to write code, which is always an option for any aspect of an AgilePoint application. For new applications going forward, especially those that might be built by a less technical user, we don't necessarily need to use those integrations, but rather, we can model our data directly within the browser. By using point and click, I can design my application data model, my tables, including child tables, directly within the AgilePoint interface, and no longer do I need to rely on database administrators or tools like SQL Server Management Studio. I can easily model processes of varying complexity including developing chatbot applications, implement logic that runs my business, and once I've built these applications, I can surface them on a custom landing page, which really simplifies how users interact with our platform. You can think of it this way. I might have a shared landing page for the entire organization built on top of AgilePoint, and then through a menu, I'll navigate to my particular team's page, which surfaces everything that I might need on a day-to-day basis. My applications, my reports, my task list, as well as any sort of image or media, all in one place, giving me one location to visit for everything that I might need on a day-to-day basis. Now, I know we have a number of developers on the line as well, and rest assured, there is an interface that is optimized for what you need within AgilePoint as well. AgilePoint offers a very robust, extensible SDK framework that plugs in directly into Visual Studio and enables me to extend every facet of the AgilePoint platform, whether that's integration or activities, as well as server-level behavior. Through a one-time development exercise using our Visual Studio plugin, your custom development becomes easily reusable and configurable, and thereby further empowering the less technical users to leverage your custom development via drag and drop. And of course, all of this is backed by a platform that's ready to handle web-scale volume and deliver a personalized experience for every group or team through our multi-tenant architecture. So with these things in mind here, right, our goal as a platform and as an organization is to bring the business and the developers closer together and enabling them to innovate side by side. I have a couple of great examples of just how we've done that with real customers. The first example here I'd like to go through really gives you a sense of the scale at which AgilePoint can be used. Right? The example comes here from a Fortune 100 manufacturer who used AgilePoint to create 3,000 applications in a 2-year period. Right? And not only is it extremely compelling the speed at which they built these applications, but also just how considerably they consolidated their legacy application portfolio, with 3,000 AgilePoint applications handling the workload of 10,000 applications built on homegrown technologies. Now, if you're like many of the others that are on the line with you today, you're looking to grow the talent pool for building these custom apps. And a great way to do that is by tapping power users, sometimes referred to as citizen developers. Now, this slide here is an excerpt from a webinar that we did with the Salvation Army and Forrester Research about a year ago, and is a great testament to what can be achieved with AgilePoint in the hands of a less technical user. The Salvation Army was not realizing their application development goals, so they went into the teams and found a power user and enabled them to build applications using AgilePoint. After a short training period in the first year, the single user was able to develop 10 applications. In 2018, that number doubled to 20 and will again double to 40 in 2019. Right, this is the sort of output that we see from a team of developers, and when you consider that this is a single, non-technical user, these results are nothing short of astounding. And of course, again, for the developers in the room, there's plenty for you within AgilePoint as well. Right, I have a great example from a Fortune 20 retailer. You've probably shopped with them a number of times. They have 10,000 stores across the world. Right? And they were struggling over a period of a year to build a process application to automate a very core facet of their business. Right? They went back out into the market and found AgilePoint. And after giving them our technology, in the period of 4 days, one of their developers was able to release an application that had twice the amount of functionality that took more than a year using a competitive platform. Right, this case was so compelling that it actually was profiled in Forbes, and we'd be glad to send you a copy of that article post the webinar today. Now, working with many different types of customers with varying risk and compliance profiles, there's a deployment model for AgilePoint that fits your needs. Regardless of what you choose initially, there is a single code base across each of these deployment types. And what that's meant for our customers is that they can easily switch between deployments, maybe starting off on premises. All of a sudden, you have an organizational directive to move to the cloud. All of your applications will move seamlessly without any refactoring or any rebuilding. And then lastly here, before I jump into the demo, I'd like to give you a quick sense of our pricing model. Now, this is always available on our website, but in short, there are a number of tiers that will correlate to your level of usage within AgilePoint, starting off with our free Community Edition. This is a fully functional version of our technology and is a great way to help build initial value within your organization before moving on to a licensed tier. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into a demo and give you a sense of the different types of applications we can build using AgilePoint. Okay, so the first application that I'd like to show you today is a data-driven or a form-based application, right? Because not every application in your portfolio requires approval steps or workflow. Sometimes we just want to maintain data, that is read or write data, to some external source. Now what you're seeing here on screen is a custom landing page, right? One of those landing pages that I mentioned, and it was built as part of an on-site POC for the city of Boston. Now, there were many factors that ultimately led to AgilePoint's selection by the city for their citywide digitization efforts. This was just one of them. But to give you a sense here, we've recreated boston.gov using AgilePoint's page builder via exclusively drag and drop based development. You'll see I have some information about city services, but underneath the common resources section, you'll see that there are a number of tiles. Each of these will correlate to different AgilePoint components. Things like reports, my task list, as well as a variety of applications. So let's just give you a sense of one of them here. This is a construction permit request where a citizen or a contractor will pull a permit for new construction at a particular location. In this case here, the application knows who's logged in and pre-populates some data on my behalf. I'm just going to enter some data here and then go ahead and fill a permit request. Now the city wanted two different ways to look up a site for new building. The first of which is to enter based on coordinates for latitude and longitude. I'm a little more comfortable with entering my address here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And as you can see, based on those selections that I'm making, toggling between coordinates and address, different fields are shown or hidden. Right, so this sort of dynamic behavior is something very commonly requested by our customers. And when I looked up that address against the city's publicly available REST service, some data has been pre-populated on my behalf, including my location on a Google map. So let's just zoom in a little bit here and give you a closer look. Scrolling down here, I have a few additional options. I can specify my role as being homeowner or contractor. And again, right, a different set of options will show based on the selections that I'm making. But for now, let's just go ahead and click submit and fill this permit request. Now, form-based applications, when I build one of these, AgilePoint will pre-create a number of components on my behalf. Right, the first of which is this view that you're seeing here, where I can toggle between all construction permits, recently created or recently modified permits. And you'll see here that we've filled a few previously. I can easily bring up a historical view of those that have been submitted previously and view all of the data entered, as well as make modifications to previously submitted requests. Okay, for the next example here, I'm going to go ahead and give you a sense of a process-based application. Now this one is similarly launched from a custom landing page. And on the page here, you'll see I have a button for a new process instance, my task list, as well as various reports. Let's just go ahead and click Launch New Process. Now, this particular customer wanted to get away from using Excel as a part of their core business processes. So we're showing you here how we can bring Excel into a business application. So what I'll do here is I'll attach my Excel document, and AgilePoint's going to extract all of the values from that Excel and pre-populate the form on my behalf. Optionally, I can attach additional documents here and leave a comment for the next approver in the chain. Now, this is handy not only to see the audit history throughout the process instance, but I can also report against this sort of data here as well. But for now, let's just click Submit. And in just another moment here, I've received a task. Now you'll see here a pretty standard AgilePoint email notification. I've surfaced some application data that was entered into the form, and I'm given two options here. Right, first, I'll go ahead and click my process viewer link so we can follow along with the process as it executes. As an alternative, I can approve my task directly from within Outlook without even needing to log into AgilePoint. But let's go ahead and open my task here. So I'm going to play all approval roles in this process, and I'm just going to go ahead and approve it. So what's going to happen next? After that approval, we're going to assemble a document using the application data that was captured by our form, and we're going to send it for digital signature. In this case here, we're using DocuSign, but there's lots of options, so you can feel free to use your favorite digital signature provider. If I go back to my inbox here, I should have a task to complete via DocuSign. And after I complete this task, AgilePoint's going to pass all of the application data over to an RPA solution. In this case, UiPath, but Blue Prism is coming very soon. So in just another moment, we'll start to see my software robot take over, and it's going to enter all of the application data into two different sources. The first of which is a WinForm application, and the second will be a website. Now, as you're seeing here, my software robot is entering my data. And there's really a couple of different use cases to have a robot work side by side with AgilePoint. Right? In some cases here, there might be high volume data entry that's simply manual and error prone. Right? And others, are to integrate at a UI level various systems that do not offer an API. Okay, so that completes the second demo that I'd like to show you today. In closing, I'm going to bring up one of our chatbot-based applications. So what I'm showing you here is a chatbot application that's surfaced in Slack. That was just a choice for this particular application. Right? We've seen these surfaced on websites, in internal portals, as well as other chat providers. But in short, I get all of the same capabilities from an integration perspective, dynamic actions, right, as I do with the normal AgilePoint process in a much more conversational interface. Now here, I'm onboarding myself for a legal consultation with a law firm, and based on the selections that I'm making, right, things like consultation length, the lawyer, AgilePoint will send me a bill accordingly to process my payment via PayPal. Now you'll see here that AgilePoint is asking me for my email address. Right? The reason that I bring this up is because I'm using AgilePoint in an unauthenticated mode. Right? This is leveraging a capability called anonymous forms, which means that I can bring in external users into my processes without them consuming a license. So think about your customers, your partners or suppliers, and how you can bring them into your business process without needing to maintain a separate license for those users. And just lastly here, I'll explain the nature of my consultation. I will validate the selections that I've made. And in just another moment, I will receive a link to process my payment via PayPal. So this might take 10-15 seconds or so, but it should show up very shortly. Okay, there's my link. So I'm going to copy this and open it in a private browser. And if I navigate over to the case details page here, you'll see that all of the data that I gave to the bot has been passed over to AgilePoint, and I can input my credit card details. Okay, so that concludes the demo portion. Let's go do some Q&A. All right, so thank you everyone. We do have another few moments here set aside for questions. So if there's any pressing questions that you have, please do let us know. The first question that I'm getting here is a little bit of a clarification around the AgilePoint pricing model, specifically around concurrent users. Right now, this is a great question because the AgilePoint concurrent model is a little bit different than what you might be used to, right? And it's this sort of unique wrinkle to our concurrent model that enables us to support very high user bases with a relatively small number of concurrent licenses. So what you might be used to with this sort of model is considering the number of users that are currently logged into the platform. Now, from our perspective, we don't care about who's logged in, right? Our only major consideration is who is actively engaged in an AgilePoint application. By that, I mean, if someone has received a task and is approving or rejecting a step in a process, right? Maybe you're entering data into a form-based application, creating a report, or developing an application. So really, only under these scenarios would a concurrent user be consuming a license. Right, which means you can have all of your AgilePoint users logged into AgilePoint behind the scenes, and provided that they're not actively engaged in some aspect of the platform, they'll never consume a license. Right, and this is what really gives us that ability, right, as I mentioned just a moment ago, to support very high user bases with a relatively small investment in concurrent licenses. It's a great question. Okay, my next question here is kind of driving at the different types of applications that AgilePoint can build. My question is, what are the differences between a process and a form-based application? Right, that's another great question, right? And the primary difference here is the nature of the app, right? With form-based applications, what we're doing primarily here is providing create, read, update, and delete operations against a data source, right? Essentially where I can retrieve data that's stored in maybe SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, what have you, maybe SharePoint, or being able to write back to those systems. The major differentiator from a process perspective, right, is just that. It is the ability to have workflow or approval steps as a part of an application. So that's the primary difference, right? Process applications having those workflow or approval steps. Great question. Thank you for that. I have another question here that's speaking to AgilePoint's roadmap, right? And while obviously we can't share some of the finer points unless we're under a non-disclosure agreement, right? The intent with version 7 and going forward with our upcoming software update 2 release is to continue to improve usability for the various aspects of the platform for less technical users. Right, as we mentioned a little earlier on in the presentation, the version 7 release was really a landmark major platform release for AgilePoint, right? Because it really drives to bringing the less technical folks, right, the citizen developer, the line of business user, further into the application development process.
right? It's these folks who often understand their business requirements the best, right? And the larger of a role that they can play in developing and designing their own applications, the more closely those applications deliver on their specific needs. So with the last version of AgilePoint Software 7 Software Update 1, right, we introduced a number of new capabilities to enable those less technical users to design more of an application. And that's going to be a continued theme coming up in our next release, right? So whether that's with respect to automating a greater chunk of application design from a forms perspective, right, as well as enabling non-designers to build more complex and more beautiful pages, right? One of the capabilities that we mentioned a little earlier on in the presentation, was how we can surface all of the AgilePoint components that a team or a group might need on a single page, right? So that might be things like processes or forms, reports, my task list, as well as any other sort of media, right? So those are some of the major areas of focus for us, right? Automating more of the application development process, right? And enabling those non-designers to build more complex and involved and beautiful landing pages on top of the AgilePoint portal, right? All sort of driving towards that theme of personalization, right? And enabling the less technical user to contribute to a larger piece of that application development process. It's a great question. Okay, my next question here is, how do I learn more about AgilePoint? Well, for that, there's a number of great resources at your disposal that you can take in at your leisure, right? I would highly recommend you take a look at our user forum, right? As well as a number of the training resources that we have available. Let's see here. Yeah, so from a training perspective, I would highly recommend visiting training.agilepoint.com. This is a great sort of getting started use case. If you're completely new to AgilePoint, maybe you don't have much development experience to speak of, this will take you through all the way from getting familiar with our platform at a very 101 sort of level, right? Taking you all the way through building your first applications, managing those applications, as well as your AgilePoint deployment as a whole, right? So a great getting started resource. From there, or if you have, some development experience in the past, I would highly recommend taking a look at video.agilepoint.com. This is another resource that will take you through build from scratch scenarios, right? As well as speak to some of the more advanced application use cases and specific scenarios. Right? And actually included in this video portal is a free 6-day self-paced training, right? That until fairly recently was a paid engagement from AgilePoint. And this will cover, not only the platform as a whole, right? How to achieve the various objectives, right? But we'll take you again through some more advanced build from scratch scenarios, how to debug those applications, and we'll also help impart, some best practices in application design. Great question. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions for the moment. So with that said, we'll leave the line open for just another minute or so. And if there are no further questions, thank you everyone today for your engagement and your great questions. Be on the lookout for an email from our marketing team for our upcoming specialty webinar, right? This next webinar series is going to focus on using AgilePoint for developing core business applications. I believe the date that we have selected is July 25th. It's a Thursday towards the end of this month, right? And will really be a continuation in the past specialty webinar series. So in some of the prior installments, we'd focused around starting with building small applications, right? And in some cases, this can be a mobile application. It could be a form app, right? That is an application without workflow. The second installment in that series sort of built on those skills that we learned in the first installment and showed how we can add different sorts of system integration activities, right? Things like document generation, integration with third-party systems, right? To create full-featured process-based applications. And in this next installment here, we'll take the next logical step, right? Which is moving from these slightly smaller applications to something that spans the entirety of your enterprise. Right, and these core business applications are really doing a number of things, right? For one, they can be very central to how your organization generates revenue, right? They can have a very positive impact on the customer's experience, right? Helping you establish loyalty among your customer base and repeat customers, right? And it really follows the theme of leveraging AgilePoint as that singular development platform where an application developer can build skills against a singular platform and in turn, right, build a wide variety of different types of applications. Right, and if you recall from one of the prior slides that we talked about, this was really one of Forrester's keys to a successful and sustainable digital business transformation, right? That ability to digitalize every facet of your operations, right? Whether that's for internal efficiencies, right? Bringing your customers and partners closer into your business processes, and things of that nature. So look out for an invite from the marketing team for that webinar a little bit later on in the month. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions for now. So again, thanks everyone for your questions and your engagement. Until next time.